A man can only truly be himself when he's alone. But the moment he falls in love, something changes. He stops being exactly who he was. It's not just my opinion. Arthur Schopenhauer said it nearly 2 centuries ago. There comes a moment in every man's life, a quiet soul-splitting moment, when the illusions begin to crack. He looks at the very things he once chased with blind devotion, love, companionship. The dream of building a future with someone who whispers promises of understanding. But what if all of it was a lie? Schopenhauer didn't just question that idea, he dismantled it. This was a man who stared straight into the dark machinery of human desire and refused to look away. To him, romance wasn't salvation, it was seduction. Not a blessing, but a beautifully wrapped trap. What the world celebrates as love, he called delusion. What most people hail as intimacy, he saw as biology dressed up in poetry. And what we think is connection, he saw as suffering wearing a disguise. For Schopenhauer, the difference between man and woman wasn't only physical light, was metaphysical. Man, he argued, strives for ideals, philosophies, creation. Woman, he said, clings to the immediate, the practical, the instinct to survive. In his words, women remain children their whole lives. They focus only on what's closest to them, live entirely in the present moment, and mistake the appearance of something for the reality of it. To him, this wasn't meant as an insult, it was an observation, a way of looking through nature's lens. And beauty, to Schopenhauer, beauty was a mask, nothing more. A kind of bait designed by nature to seduce, disarm, and capture a man's judgment. Not a gift to the world, but a lure meant to pull him away from his pursuits and bind him to his own urges. And the trap works. Over and over again, men who built empires, shaped history, stood firm in principle, had fallen not to armies or ideas, but to the soft voice and gentle touch of a woman they could never truly understand. Schopenhauer argued that because women lacked the raw power to enforce force or shape great ideas, they mastered a different art subtlety. Their influence wasn't over the battlefield, but over the bedroom. It's not over the empire, but over the heart of the man who ruled it. Where men built the world, women shaped the men who built it through charm, through emotion, through need. And yet society romanticizes all of this. We call it love. We frame it as something sacred. But to Schopenhauer, it was a transaction wrapped in poetry, a biological imperative wearing the clothes of sacred vows. Love, he wrote, isn't what it appears to be. It isn't the meeting of souls. It isn't destiny or fate. It's a trick. He called it the will to life, a blind force acting through us, caring nothing for peace of mind, personal happiness, or dreams. Its only goal, to keep the species alive. And to achieve that, it whispers fantasies into our hearts and paints illusions in our minds. It tells you she's different. It convinces you this time it's real. And by the time you see the truth, you've already surrendered. For Schopenhauer, marriage was not a sacred bond. It was the final act in a man's downfall, a legally binding illusion, a contract signed with hope, but paid for with regret. He believed that once a man falls under the spell of beauty and promise, he's no longer free. Marriage wasn't about love. Was nature's strategy to guarantee reproduction? And the man, blinded by emotion, becomes a beast of burden. It works. He sacrifices. He bends his will not for glory or meaning, but to sustain a structure that often leaves him drained, empty, and chained. When beauty fades, when the enchantment wears off, what's left? For many, resentment. Silence. A quiet disillusionment. The freedom he once had, the freedom to think, to build, to roam the world in search of truths replaced by duty, responsibility, and routine. Schopenhauer wrote, "Marriage is a trap set by nature, the will to live wrapped in illusion. The bait is a woman's smile, her softness, the promise of connection. But beneath it all, it's instinct, survival, repetition." This wasn't hatred, it was a warning. He didn't see women as villains, but as unconscious agents of nature's design. Their aim wasn't personal malice, it was survival, to secure safety, resources, and the survival of their children. To do this, he claimed, women developed an unmatched skill and emotional influence. It's not through logic or strength, but through persuasion, intuition, and subtle pressure. And it's on this emotional battlefield where many men lose, not because they're weaker, but because they're unaware. They fight with logic in a realm ruled by instinct. They try to reason when they should resist. Schopenhauer saw how men, in this arrangement, often became pawns. They build the house, but it's no longer theirs. They strive in their careers only to give the fruits away. They dream, but their dreams are diluted by the weight of obligation. And all the while, they convince themselves this is fulfillment, that the sacrifice is noble, even necessary. But under the surface, many feel that ached, that quiet sense that something has been lost. A voice they no longer hear, fire that no longer burns, a version of themselves buried under layers of compromise. He warned men of this fate, not to condemn women, but to awaken men, to show them the forces at play, to help them see through the veil before it's too late. He wasn't speaking to men as enemies of women, but as seekers of truth, because in Schopenhauer's eyes, it's not woman that destroys man, it's man's ignorance of woman, his romanticized delusions, his failure to understand what drives attraction and what it costs him. The tragedy isn't that men love, it's that they love blindly. They give their soul to an idea they've never questioned, that they confuse desire for destiny and seduction for sincerity. And when the illusion fades, when reality sets in, they're left with more than broken hearts. They're left with broken lives. Schopenhauer's brilliance wasn't in bitterness, it was in clarity. He stripped away sentiment and revealed the machinery underneath the raw, unfiltered forces of nature that drive us all, whether we see them or not. He saw men not as oppressors, but as victims of their own longing. Men who, by nature, are noble, rational, driven, builders of thought and civilization. They erect empires, paint masterpieces, unlock the secrets of science, and wrestle with the great philosophical questions. But all of it, every achievement, can crumble the moment a man surrenders to unchecked desire. Because once he falls under the spell, he stops serving his purpose and starts serving hers. Once a man starts bending himself to fit someone else's expectations, the slow erosion begins. At first, it's subtle. He gives up a little time here and there, the hours he once spent on his craft, his passions, his ambitions now traded for attention, for comfort, for the hope of keeping someone close. Then it's the fire. The hunger that drove him to build, to create, to chase greatness. It dims. Not because he's lazy, but because his focus shifts. His energy is redirected. What once went toward building something larger than himself now goes toward maintaining a relationship. And then comes the solitude. The quiet space that once gave birth to his ideas, his breakthroughs, his personal evolution, disappears. In its place is constant togetherness, constant negotiation, constant compromise. One by one these pillars fall, till the man who once stood tall is now kneeling, not in reverence, but in resignation. His purpose becomes maintenance. His joy becomes avoidance. His dreams shrink to fit inside the walls of someone else's comfort zone. And yet society praises this. They call it maturity, responsibility, even true love. But Schopenhauer wasn't fooled. He challenged us to ask, what if this isn't growth? What if it's surrender? What if the man who gives up his fire isn't evolving, but fading? To Schopenhauer, the truly awakened man doesn't hate women. He understands them. He doesn't reject love outright. He simply sees it for what it is. A force that must be respected, not worshipped. And most importantly, he guards his soul against being consumed by the very things that promise happiness, but so often deliver distraction. This isn't a call for men to lock themselves away in isolation. It's a call for awareness, to pause and ask yourself, am I still the man I was meant to be? Or have I become someone else for the sake of peace, attention, or fleeting pleasure? Schopenhauer's voice wasn't angry, it was cautionary. Quiet truth, cutting through the noise of culture, calling men back to themselves before it's too late. In his world, the highest form of man wasn't the lover, the husband, or even the warrior. It was the philosopher. The one who sees the game for what it is, and chooses not to play. The man who turns away from the noise, the seduction, the applause of others, and instead faces the silence within. He believed that only in detachment can a man truly be free. By letting go of the illusion of fulfillment through others, can he begin to understand his true nature. History offers plenty of examples: the Buddha, the Stoics, the saints and sagesmen who walked alone. Not because they were unloved, but because they refused to trade their peace for momentary affection. They saw through the mirage of romantic salvation. They chose wisdom over warmth, clarity over comfort. And it was in that solitude, Schopenhauer argued, that man finds his greatest power. It's not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that reclaims himself. This path, he admitted, isn't for everyone. Most people will reject it. Society will call it cold, detached, even bitter. But Schopenhauer didn't write for everyone. He wrote for the few men who were ready to see. The men who had suffered enough to finally ask why. The men who had chased love, lost themselves, and were now looking for something real. Not validation, not comfort, but truth. And the truth is simple. A man who doesn't understand his desires is ruled by them. A man who doesn't understand women is vulnerable to them. And a man who builds his identity on the promises of romance will watch that identity crumble when those promises are broken. Schopenhauer's challenge was direct. Are you awake, or are you dreaming someone else's dream? This isn't a rejection of love, it's a call to love differently, to love your mind, to love your purpose, to love the stillness that speaks when the world goes quiet. It's the man who can sit alone with his thoughts and feel no hunger. It's no longing, no ache for something more. That man cannot be controlled. That man is truly free. So if you're watching this, and something inside you stirseth, something feels painfully, uncomfortably true, don't run from it. Sit with it. Let it burn away the illusions you've been clinging to. Let it strip you of the lies you've been told about who you need to be and what will make you whole. You were never meant to live in chains disguised as comfort. You were never meant to die in a life built on compromise. You were meant to see clearly, to walk alone if you must. To rise not, because someone told you to, but because you remembered who you are. Let Schopenhauer's brutal truth be the mirror. Not so you can hate the world, but so you can stop being deceived by it. Because once you see clearly, you can't unsee. If this message has opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let it reach the men who were never told these things. Because truth might set you free, but first, it will shatter everything you thought you knew. If this message shook something inside you, if it made you uncomfortable, or forced you to question the things you've always believed, don't turn away from it. Sit with that discomfort. That feeling you have right now is the crack in the illusion. It's the moment before a man wakes up. For too long, we've been fed the same story. That love will complete you. That partnership will save you. That giving yourself fully to another person, no matter the cost, is the highest virtue a man can aspire to. But if you look closely, you'll see what Schopenhauer saw. That these ideals, while beautiful on the surface, often serve something far more primal underneath. A force that doesn't care about your fulfillment, your peace, or your ambitions. A force that only cares about continuation, about survival. And when you understand that, you see the game differently. You stop playing on autopilot. You stop giving away your freedom in exchange for a smile, a promise, or a fleeting sense of belonging. You start asking the real questions. Who am I when I'm alone? What do I want from this life? Not what I've been told to want, but what truly sets my soul on fire. Have I been building my world, or have I been building someone else's? These aren't easy questions. They demand honesty, the kind of honesty that doesn't let you hide behind romance, routine, or responsibility. And when you strip everything away, their expectations, the illusions, the societal applause, you might find that the man you once were has been buried for years. Schopenhauer's philosophy wasn't about bitterness. It was about clarity. It was about protecting that original fire inside a man, the fire to create, to explore, to think deeply, to build something lasting, not just for others, but for himself. He understood that love can be beautiful, but only when it doesn't come at the cost of your soul. That connection can be meaningful, but only when it doesn't chain you to a life you didn't choose. He saw that too many men confuse surrender for growth. They think they've matured because they've settled. They believe they've found peace because they've stopped fighting, but in reality, they've simply stopped trying. And here's the truth, no one wants to say out loud. A man who loses his purpose for the sake of a relationship rarely gets it back. Once you've built your life around pleasing someone else, it's hard to remember how to build for yourself. That's why Schopenhauer warned men to stay awake, to recognize the cost before they pay it. Because the tragedy isn't that love can hurt you, it's that it can make you forget yourself entirely. So what's the alternative? Not isolation, not cynicism, it's not running from connection, but entering it with your eyes open. With the awareness that love is not magic, it's a force. And like any powerful force, it can either build you up or break you down. If you keep your purpose at the center of your life, if you guard your time, your energy, and your mind as your most precious resources, then you can walk into love without losing yourself in it. The man who knows who he is will never kneel out of resignation. He might choose to bow out of respect, but never because he's forgotten his own worth. And that's what Schopenhauer wanted men to understand, that the highest goal is not to be loved, it's to be free. Not free from relationships, but free from the illusions that turn them into cages. When you can sit in a room alone and feel complete, when you can walk away from anything that threatens your purpose. When you can love without needing to be validated, when you become untouchable. And that's when you see what he meant all along. This message isn't for everyone. Some will hear it and dismiss it. Some will call it bitter. Some will get angry. But for a few, the ones who have felt that quiet ache that pulled towards something more, it will be the spark they needed, will be the start of reclaiming themselves. If you're one of those men, don't let it end here. Slip back into the comfort of the dream you've just started to wake from. Feed your mind with truth. Build your life around your purpose. Learn to love in a way that adds to you, not drains you. And above all, never forget who you are, because a man who remembers who he is can't be controlled. And a man who can't be controlled is truly free. If this spoke to you, share it. Let another man hear what he's never been told. Like the video. Subscribe for more content that doesn't just entertain, but awakens. And if you believe in this mission, consider supporting the channel so we can keep bringing these truths into the light. The world has enough men living someone else's dream. Be the one who wakes up. Be the one who chooses freedom over illusion. Because the truth will set you free. But first, it will shatter everything you thought you knew.